Hello, we're here today with Malkova from Fireblocks, gracing us from Europe. Thank you for being here.
Well, thanks for having me.
Today we're going to focus on enterprise security. What can crypto businesses be doing to protect their users? And Fireblocks, do you want to just talk about quickly what you do and what you've seen?
So Fireblocks is an enterprise technology for digital assets. Our bread and butter is safekeeping tech. So we're the tech layer that sits under custodians or other type of businesses that provide custody for digital assets. So we help crypto asset businesses be safer for the purposes of their client money. And one thing that struck me lately is that crypto assets businesses can grow quite fast, and they need to be very self-aware. What is that moment when the cost of losing your client money outweighs the cost of the investment that you need to make into your technology? And that's usually when we get a phone call.
Have there been situations where you've seen mistakes where they just could have been prevented with some small security practices even?
We tend to talk about the Bybit hack as an anatomy of a preventable loss. There's several things that happen there, from manipulating of the human in the beginning of the transaction or even before that, to manipulating the technology. And both of these are based on recorded patterns, and therefore they're all preventable.
Well, and when we talk about manipulating humans, there's some research out that where there is a significant life event, usually you are more vulnerable to a particular attack, like a loss of life or a loss of job, moving house. Those life events tend to be available on social media or on the dark nets and make individuals more vulnerable to manipulation. But from the tech side, that's a lot harder to understand how it can be manipulated.
I find it most kind of easy to imagine by thinking about it as a layer cake, right? So we talk about end-to-end security is the catchphrase for an engineer, but actually it means that there are various components of a cybersecurity system, and all of them need to communicate to each other in a way that every next component of security doesn't actually blindly trust the one before. So if you do one thing, then the next step that happens, whether it's human pushed or automatic, needs to double check that that first thing was what you intended to do. So I'll give you a very concrete example. If you're signing a transaction, you might have heard people talk about something called blind signing. So if you're signing a transaction with a gadget, you need that gadget to give you enough context of what you're actually just agreeing to do, to make sure that this button that you're pressing here and this button that you're pressing on your screen, let's say, and in your handheld device, are the same activity or the same message, exactly.
Yeah, and which is what we saw happen in the Bybit attack. The humans were manipulated or fooled into thinking that they were one and the same when they had no way of checking really that they were different?
Yes, that, but actually when I talked about human manipulation, I meant even the step before. So from all the information available, kind of we as an industry believe that the machine of some of the engineers at the custody technology provider was infected. The way that happens is actually part of a well-established pattern that was activated not less than just 6 months ago in a previous hack. So basically that North Korea group will either offer to hire or downright hire engineer in order to establish trust through either a recruitment process or actually paying a salary or paying for a project. And by getting that engineer to effectively work for the hackers, that creates a vulnerability where they can infect their computer.
And you're seeing the EU policymakers grapple with all of these issues. You know, crypto scams and scams generally are everywhere as technology evolves. What are some of the key things that the policymakers are honing in on and focusing on this cycle?
So when you keep a system safe, That's called operational resilience in legal terms, in regulatory terms. One thing that the EU just closed is something called the Digital Operational Resilience Act. And so that sets up the principles of how you keep your system safe, whether you're a crypto exchange or you're a bank or an asset manager, anybody in financial services, but also how you manage your relationship with a third-party provider, which is what Fireblocks would be in this example. So that's usually what politicians do. It's called DORA in the EU, it's called material outsourcing in other parts. It's all more or less based on the same principles.
But it applies not just to enterprises with their operational resilience, it's something that we can take away personally too.
Yeah, exactly. So basically the principle that you need to educate yourself on cybersecurity for digital assets. And the way you safeguard the digital asset is different than the way you safeguard, for example, your deposit in the bank, right? That applies on an individual level as it applies on the enterprise level. So there are solutions that are for a retail audience that may allow you to have what's called a hot wallet, so the thing that you interact with on a daily basis, and your own individual hot wallet that you keep things safer in, for example, right? Or how you keep your keys or your passwords safe. All these elements actually come together in an enterprise-grade solution, but they have implications for personal security as well, cybersecurity.
Well, and to close us out, I mean, I'm bombarded by software, and even on my phone, I'll just do automatic software upgrade for the 120 apps that I have at any one time. I'm blind signing, really. I'm not reviewing all of the updates and
nobody reads
bugs.
the T's and C's. Yeah.
And so there's a level of dissonance or just tech confusion or tech overload where I'm not looking. How do we strike a balance between what do I read and double check versus what can I just sign?
Yeah, I think when it comes to your asset security, honestly, at the personal level, I don't love doing that, but I understand and it's important. So just give 3 hours of your weekend, sit down, read it, figure it out, do it once, right? And then maybe, read it again in 6 months' time in case things get updated, right? It's just, I think there's no way around. There's no silver bullet other than taking some individual responsibility for your cybersecurity and saying, look, I mean, your beaches are beautiful, but they will be there 3 hours later, right?
Yeah. So take your cyber safety seriously, and the beach can wait till afterwards.
A little bit.
Yeah. Thank you, Daya.